Hi, I'm Kevin,
And I'm Amanda.
and we are serving up.
All that jam. A lighthearted look at the weekend jam bands.
Where we break down the jam scene's biggest stories,
Talk new bands.
upcoming tours,
And show reviews. A little laughing, some hot takes, and an always positive message for the community.
Week of October 9th, 2023, Jimkata.
Welcome back. There's a chill to the winter and a nip to the air, and we had some heavy hitters playing coast to coast. Fish was in Nashville, Goose was out in Colorado, and Billy Springs was on the left coast. It reminds me how the chill of fall brings us together under the glow of music. And with that, we have a packed show today. But first, we're really excited that you're tuning in today. I'm Kevin.
Hi, I'm Amanda.
And you're listening to the All That Jam Weekly Wrap-Up, a lighthearted look at the weekend jam bands.
All right, Kevin, we had such a great week this past week. Lots of interviews. Wanted to just mention those and give a thanks to everybody that took some time out to chat with us. Ben Bloom from Polyrhythmics, have loved them for ages. They have a new album out called Filter System, and they're about to head on the road in a few weeks for a tour that's going to take them cross country. We got to chat with Ben about what it's like to be an instrumental only band in this day and age, and also got to check in on some of his latest coffee faves out in Seattle. Matt Glickman, New England based keyboardist, he gave us a ton of info on his first single, which recently dropped, and talked a little bit about he has an album coming out that's going to be a live recording, a little bit of a more natural, authentic sound, and I'm really excited to hear that. That should be coming out soon. Hold on. That should be coming out soon, so look for that one online. We also provided some links on our Facebook page and Instagram so you can find him. And then rounding out that great week of conversations, we met with Corey and Tina from the Americana-led duo Way Down North. They're going to be opening for Spafford on October 22nd at the Coop in Columbia Falls, Montana. So 3 really great and different and unique conversations that we had. So listen for those clips and interviews coming out soon.
Yeah, look for that. Look for our socials for info about all that. And also, you should be checking our socials for info on the upcoming show on the 19th in Denver. What's the word on that?
The word is, Kevin, that we just have such a great lineup and we're excited to do something different. So we'll be starting around 8 o'clock at New Conscious in Denver. That'll also be streaming. So early for everybody. Make sure that wherever you are, you tune in so you can hear some industry heavy hitters and some really great artists talking about music and also suggested music too. We've got some really, really fantastic people that have suggested songs to listen to. So we'll be talking more about that soon too.
Beautiful, beautiful. Beyond that, how was your week?
Week was good, Kevin. You know, things are busy getting ready for this event. There's a lot happening, but it's a lot of fun. And I'm hoping that we get to do more of these, maybe even in different cities. So really excited to have this first chance to, test some things out.
There you go. I just watched Fish Streams. They're sounding good. I found it interesting. Let's get into this a little bit. From what I hear, there was like 10,000 of a 20,000 seat place the first night, 13,000 the next night. Goose sold out Red Rocks. Do you think that Goose is pulling Fish fans away, or is it just that it's in Nashville in the first week of October?
I don't know. I think it's probably a little from column A, a little from column B. I do think that there may be some people who would have gone to Nashville or seen some of those shows if Goose wasn't playing out here, but I don't know how many actually
Right.
would have gone, to Tennessee. I think that this time of year travel, we're getting into New Year's territory. People have to make some hard decisions about how
Yeah.
much they can do. So,
Right. Thanksgiving, Christmas. I think that's why they laid off on doing an actual 40th anniversary run the Thanksgiving week.
yep.
And also I feel like Goose, that album, they released it and it's been getting play on college alternative radio, whatever you call that. I feel like they're bringing fans in that probably wouldn't be interested in Fish and what Fish does, because Goose is more, I don't want to say musical, lyrical, but they're more, I don't know. They can write a quote unquote meaningful song better than Fish can, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm glad, because it seems like a lot of those false comparisons that we would hear all the time between Fish and Goose have died down, at least in my circles or what I see online. So I'm very happy about that. I think it would be very interesting to try to figure out what that overlap might be. But you're right. I mean, the reality is, playing, in Fort Collins, Colorado, tons of people, huge lawn, no expectations to sell that out. But think about how many people, whether or not they went to that show, now know about Goose.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how it goes. And Goose and their management, I feel, have been excellent at bringing them in front of different audiences.
Right. I lived in Fort Collins for a little while. I find it very strange that, I mean, there's a college there. I understand why bands go there, but when I lived there, I saw like Dave Mason, and he played at a bar that held like 300 people, kind of thing.
Oh man. Well, Rick used to live there too. So he's got some history with Fort Collins. So I'm sure that that was a very, very special event and night for him to be back there now doing this, right? That's got to be pretty awesome. And that, as far as I know, was less than 10 years ago that he was there. So think of everything that's happened since then. Pretty amazing.
Interesting. All right, now let's jump into the business at hand. Coming up, we have an interview with Packy and Evan from Jimkata. We got to talk about what they're listening to when they aren't doing Jimkata, which led into choosing covers. We got into their philosophy on music, an upcoming doc that they had filmed about them, and a lot more. But before we get into that, why don't we jump into the
top 3 stories of the week.
All right, Kevin, I think we've got maybe 3.5 stories this week. So I'm going to start with one that is more of just a mention, because we talked about this last week, about Bandcamp and that purchase that is in progress by Epic Games. There's been a lot of conversation in different music circles about what that purchase might mean for Bandcamp, and a lot of concern, quite honestly, because Bandcamp, to a lot of people, is one of the last bastions of somewhat equitable agreements between artists, fans, and then other entities in terms of what Bandcamp offers to artists that are putting their music up there. And so a joint statement was released recently from Bandcamp co-founder Ethan Diamond and then Bandcamp United, which is a union that's represented by the Office and Professional Employees International Union, something that sounds very official. But they're really dedicated to keeping a lot of the same kind of recurring activities and events that we've all come to know, like Bandcamp Friday. Apparently, that's not going anywhere, and so it seems as though Epic is listening, or at least responding in a timely manner to some of those concerns. There was a mention that some Bandcamp employees may not be able to continue working at Bandcamp, but that's part of the reason for the purchase itself, right? Is to maybe get
wasn't this union in talks now with Epic, and the union's asking Epic to asking Song Trader to honor whatever these negotiations led to? But I'm guessing Song Trader's saying we can't because you guys all want to keep your jobs, and you all aren't keeping your jobs.
That's right. They mentioned a severance, pay. And I think any kind of transparency is better than nothing. And so time will tell, but putting it out there in writing pretty clearly at least is a move to try to address some of these concerns. If Bandcamp didn't have that union, I don't know if this would be happening. So I will be curious to see what that can do, or what might happen with that once this is finalized, and and we kind of really see what's going to go on there. So just wanted to mention that as kind of just a little bit of an update. We do have some other stories though. And Kevin, this one you had shared with me. So Travis Scott, not a name we normally talk about on the show, but there is something that's been happening around this ticket reselling economy, which we do talk about a lot because let's face it, it affects so many of us to one degree or another. Plus, it's just such a kind of huge machine. So Travis Scott's upcoming tour sold out very quickly, which we are used to. We see that happening all the time. However, all of these sold out shows are now presenting tickets on secondary markets like StubHub for, $10, $20 a ticket. And apparently, this has to do with PFS Buyers Club, which I've never heard of. And it's described as a credit card maxing site. So this is something that's totally new for me. Apparently, PFS told its members to buy as many tickets to Travis Scott's shows as possible. But what's happening now is that those tickets are selling way, way, way under face, and at least $1 million apparently will be lost somewhere between the original purchases and the resales. So hopefully I explained that right, Kevin. That's confusing. It gets a little confusing.
Right. And what jumped out into me was the line that said they told people to stop buying rare coins and start buying tickets.
Mm-hmm. So
and
as a commodity, I guess there's a big enough assumption, whether right or wrong here, maybe not proving to be maybe quite as consistent, right? A commodity as something like gold or coins or whatever, it might be. So I think that this, which is being called a fiasco, I think it is, it really also helps to bring about, the risks that even these brokers take. I mean, people really need to be thinking about what's actually going to sell. And if these things happen a couple times, hopefully somebody out there says, maybe we shouldn't be doing this, or let's just at least think about it. The fact that it's happening at all, to me, says so much. So, sorry
I have a vision in my head of all these boomers going on Ticketmaster, buying up Travis Scott tickets, not even knowing who he was or anything about.
Oh, definitely not. They're clicking a link somebody sent them, sitting somewhere in their house wondering what's going on. But, Ticketmaster, those profits that they rake in from the secondary market, from all over, it's just disgusting. And so when you see stories like this, it does, at least for a second, make you think, well, maybe someone will feel that at some point, So I guess we'll see what the next set of tours are that they turn their sights to, or maybe this will just be a one and done thing for PFS. We'll see. Okay, so moving on to something a little bit different. I found this article in the New York Times about John Zorn. Now, that's an artist that has always very clearly sought to defy categories and labels. Avant-garde is probably the one category I'd feel comfortable saying. He had started an experimental music label, and I believe it would be pronounced Tzadik. I'm not sure. But this was started in 95, so it's been around for a very long time. And they have amassed a huge catalog of experimental music from classical, jazz, rock, you name it, but never wanted to get into streaming, which is kind of understandable, to a degree. But last week, Zorn was celebrating his 70th birthday. These offerings kind of began popping up on Spotify, other platforms. It's over 800 releases, Kevin. There is so much music associated with this label. The Times put out a list of 15 albums you could start with if you wanted to. But I wanted to mention this because, like a lot of us, we're looking for new music, things that are new to us. And so this might be a great place for people to start.
I mean, that's an incredible catalog. I saw it and I was like, where do you even start? And I guess it would be go back to the beginning, find the earliest stuff, latch onto a name you liked or something, or, a subgenre of what is going on there.
Yeah. See if that could maybe help you build out a little bit of a journey map, to get to others. And I mean, I have to say, it's pretty wonderful to read, their mission statement for this label is they want to basically curate, or have curated, I guess, this community of, musician composers who would find it almost impossible to release their music in more conventional ways. And so that's why this exists. Now, one thing I did see, back to Zorn for a second, from March to May 2015, okay, this is one of the releases that's kind of being sold through the label. So just a couple months, Zorn wrote 300 new songs that were eventually collected into a book of music. That is being released on a 4 CD box set. A lot of that has been played live, but just think about that number, 300 songs in 2-3 months.
On 4 CDs, they're like a minute each.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if all of them are a part of that, but I'm curious. There's a lot here, and the website also, which I'll definitely be sharing this one. That's a good place to look around also, because you can do some searching. They've got really good archival information on there too. So this was brand new to me. I had not heard of this at all, but I'm so excited.
I've seen him with pop up cross pollinating with jam bands. Back in the 90s and 2000s, you would see his name pop up. So it's fascinating, something to jump into. We'll make sure to put a link to find out more information in the show notes. With that, why don't we jump into Jimkata? We got to talk to Packy and Evan. This first thing is we asked them what they were listening to when they weren't in Jimkata, and then it got into choosing covers and a bunch of other stuff. So let's check that out, and we'll see you on the other side. All right, so we talked about your influences. What do you guys listen to? If I listen to Spotify, when you're not working, you're not thinking about your own music, what do you put on for pleasure?
It's tough right now. Like I've been going through a cumbia kick lately. Like maybe it's just because I'm around during the day a lot more and listening to music, and I've just been kind of like, oh, what kind of music is good during the day? And you're obviously not going to be blasting, anything industrial techno wise during the day. Like I have a 10-month-old or a 10-week-old too, so it's a little more agreeable just because it's rhythmic. But I kind of fell on this playlist that's just called Psychedelic Cumbia like a week or two ago, and I've played it like probably 6 or 7 times. And it's really good. Like I didn't think of that as a genre, but it's interesting because it's got like a weird, it's like surf rock almost influence with the guitars and synthesizers, but it's that cumbia feel. That's just personal though. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. I'm kind of somewhere in that, what you're saying, Packy, where it's like I just kind of want something on. I have 2 methods of listening. One is very intently, and the other is just sort of like I want something that's like a groove. I like a lot of like kind of I'm still on this kind of like 70s ish like soul funk kick that's kind of stuff, Shuggy Otis, like Bill Withers, just stuff that's like really just kind of feels good. It can be playing in the background, or you could really study it and pick it apart if you want. But then like, I'll hear like a song on the radio or something. And like I heard it was a cover of the song Walls, and I was like, it was a cover of the song Walls, and I was like, who is that by? That's definitely a Tom Petty song, right? And then I had to like Google it, and I was like, yeah, that's the Tom Petty song. It was off of a random movie soundtrack from the 90s. It wasn't on an album. And who was the band that just covered it? The Lumineers or some bigger act. And I was like, that's a cool song. And then I kind of like listened to it.
But it's like you were saying, that's a research project all of a sudden. And like I think we're like with how simple it is to like now just like you can just Spotify anything. I feel like it's much more like weather and mood dependent on like what I listen to now. And it's like, we have always had our old go-tos, but like I'm in a period where I'm trying to experience like all sorts of new music just because you can.
Right. Do you guys do covers?
Yeah. I don't know. What have we done lately?
We did Boys of Summer by Don Henley.
Nice.
We've done
Yep.
Rock the Casbah by The Clash. We did Ordinary
right.
Pleasure by Tori Imoy. We've done, what else
Yep.
did we do last summer? We did a few other ones. I mean, in the past, we've done Depeche Mode tunes. We played Sledgehammer by Peter Gabriel. We played
Yep.
2 Nirvana songs from the last year's tour. Like,
Oh
so,
yeah,
I mean,
that's right.
you can kind
Yeah.
of see like the variety of artists
Right.
that we tend to pick from, and like I feel like we're never going to go for something obvious, even if it's a crowd pleaser. Like we try to get some with. I feel like the covers we pick, the intention is we want the crowd to remember that they forgot that they liked this song.
That's fantastic. That's a good answer.
Yeah.
I saw Aqueous
Yeah.
Friday night. I guess they're breaking up. I think Saturday night was their last show. Maybe they have one more at summer camp. But
Oh,
they
damn.
did Let's Dance.
Yeah,
And
totally.
that was great. And then in the
Nice.
middle of the jam, they started playing this song, and I was like, that's the theme to some sitcom. And I'm like, with the bartender, I'm like, what is that? And she's like, I don't know. This guy's like Friends. It's the theme to Friends. He was all
Yeah.
pissed off, and I was like, that's cool as shit. They threw in the theme
They're
to
good.
Friends.
Yeah, we go way back with those guys, and they've always been very good at like more or less trolling the audience. Where you're like, am I hearing Sports by
Yeah.
Tim and Eric like right now?
Yeah, yeah. Wow, that's crazy. This is a full circle story that tying in a couple of things here involving Friends and New Order. When I was a bartender in LA, for a brief period of time, I was at this private club, and there was this guy that would come in with his wife all the time, and he was really chill, really cool. Was a regular, and after a little while, somebody told me, like, "Oh, you don't know who that is? That's the guy from Friends." And I'm like, "What?" And I guess he was like a character actor on Friends, Gunther or something. But we used to go to this like dive bar across the street after work sometimes, and I guess one day somebody, his wife, or said that they were talking to me. What do you do? I said, "Oh, well, I play music," and they're like, "Oh, what's the name of your band?" I said, "Jimkata, check it out, whatever." And then like a few days later, I go to this dive bar after work, and he's there. That's like his spot. He likes to hang out, and he's like, "Evan, I listened to your band. It's fucking amazing. You guys are so cool. Like, you know what? It sounds like it reminds me of all this 80s new wave stuff." He's like, we start going to the jukebox, and he's showing me like stuff. He's like Heaven 17 and all these like 80s new wave bands. And like I was like, cool, man, that's awesome. Like you like right on. Like you get it. I was getting schooled on like 80s new
Haircut
wave. And, like,
100.
just the nicest guy. What's that? Yeah. He was just the nicest guy, though. It was funny. It's full circle Friends, New Order.
And also
story,
to kind of tag on to that in the theme of like, Friends and covering, we did a project with Mike Ganser from Aqueous where we played just the first 2 Weezer albums back to back. Like maybe when was that tour? In like 2016 or 15 or something like that? 2017.
17, I think.
And this was live?
Yeah, we did like 4 or 5 shows across the Northeast, and they all went so well, and it was just so freaking fun to play with him.
Yeah, it was fun between him and it was Dan Africano, who now plays with
Thievery Corporation.
Thievery Corporation. He plays Thievery Corporation now. He played bass, and between the two of them, and then the two of us, like it was really fun to kind of understand like Mike's encyclopedic brain. And same with Dan. And this is all music that I love and I thought I knew like was in my DNA, but they'd be like, no, this part goes like this. And you're like, holy shit, you're right.
I felt like a punk rock band again, like with you and I just being like, oh, that is what happens, right? Oh yeah, these guys are trained musicians. Okay, let's keep up.
Yeah.
All right, Kevin, that was such a great conversation, and this is a band that's still new to me, so I really enjoyed getting to know a lot more about them. We're going to get back into the interview in a minute here, but before we do that, want to make sure we remind everyone to check us out online at All That Jam Pod on your favorite social media platforms, and then allthatjampod.com, of course. I wanted to also share that, Kevin, you do a great job posting information for every single episode that's released throughout the week, and some descriptions of what we cover too. Do you want to talk a little bit about what we have coming up this week?
Yeah, we have Two Bob Crew. We got Luke Quaranta. On Tuesday we got Luke from Two Bob Crew talking about Weedy Brahma. than his album that they had worked on over quarantine, and also got into a little bit about what they've been doing in the studio. Wednesday, we have Litz about their origin and how their sound has evolved over the year. Thursday, we got Eddie D from Apollo Sons talking about that new LP. Friday, Cairo Jag is back about working as a trio because we love getting into trios and that. Saturday, Pete Lavazzoli from Jazz is Dead, the drummer from Jazz is Dead, about that. So that'll be fascinating. And then Ben Bloom, who we mentioned earlier, on Polyrhythmic's new LP called Filter System. So make sure that every day you come in, check that out. The best way to do it, subscribe, follow, turn on whatever notifications they have so it just pops up in your player every day.
Kevin, that's a pretty stacked list again every week. And I have to say, sometimes when I'm trying to fall asleep at night, I'll get my podcast going. And it's a very interesting thing to wake up to the sound of your own voice. It happens sometimes, but it's so great. And, I just love not only what we've got coming up this week, but some really great stuff coming up soon too. All right, let's get back into the interview. This is the second half for Jimkata, and here we're going to be talking a little bit with them on, generally speaking, their philosophy around life, music. They do have some upcoming documentary work coming out here, and mentioned something about working with a new studio too. So let's get back into that.
Do you guys have a philosophy about music, how you approach it?
I mean, for me, I view it as like the roots of it is like almost like a sort of a spiritual thing, I guess, for me, is the way I feel about it. Like like I get ideas, I don't know where they come from. We're dealing in sound waves, and we're creating things out of thin air and then putting them out there, and then people receive it and give you the energy back. I guess if I don't know, philosophy, I don't know. It just has to, I don't even know what, it just has to be sort of somehow true and authentic to you and feel good. And
there's
whatever.
not a rule. It just has to move you in a way. Personally,
right.
I feel like I'm
in some way.
Maybe it's just because I'm a drummer, but I'm very visceral in like what I like. Like I saw a punk rock show like just a matter of weeks ago, and it made me forget how I'm like, oh yeah, it's not about anything being clean. It's not about anything being tight. It's just about it being like this in your face. It's the same thing when like I see electronic shows. It's all about just that bass rumbling you right here. It's not so much about like the, like anything lyrical content or whatever. And like, I don't know, I think the diversity in that is what I love about music, is that things can be multiple of those qualities at once, or none of them, and it still hits you in a certain way that works.
I took my youngest, my 16-year-old, to see Bikini Kill last week.
Awesome.
And hour and 20 minutes, 22 songs, boom, yep. Rebel Girl for an encore. I mean, what could you ask for,
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Absolutely loved it. So
nice.
What does the spring, summer, fall look like for Jimkata?
We got some...
Well,
there's some dates across the Northeast coming up. Let me see. April 27th at Metronome in Burlington. 28th at Putnam Place in Saratoga Springs, New York. April 29th at the Westcott Theater in Syracuse. The next weekend, I guess closer to you, Kevin, is the Winchester in Cleveland. And then you're Ohio, right?
No, I'm in Baltimore.
You're in Baltimore, okay.
Oh, man. No,
yeah,
not close to you at all.
Sorry, this shirt.
Actually, Sykesville, but I say Baltimore because people are like, Sykesville, you either heard of it or you're like, what the hell is that?
Sure. My sister lives in Ellicott City.
Oh, I'm right by there. I grew up in Ellicott City.
She lives there with her family now. But anyway, it's Winchester in Cleveland, Buffalo Ironworks on May 5th, Thunderbird Music Hall in Pittsburgh on May 6th, and then we're going to Denver on the 3rd of June, and then there's some festival hits later on this summer. But if you want to funnel people just towards our Instagram or Facebooks,
definitely,
they can find all the information there. Oh, right. We made a movie. We're showing a movie.
Yeah.
Oh, well, let's hear the movie. What's that?
We got that. So we had our friend Dylan Avery came out on the road with us last year, out to our first time in California, first shows out there, and he's been filming a lot in general for us lately. And originally it was like a sort of a almost like a travel log type thing of our time there. And then we sort of tied it in with some older footage we had of when we were making bonfires and all kinds of stuff. So it's a lot of it's like a short documentary.
I forgot to mention, Kevin, in those years that we weren't touring, we shot a lot of footage of just the recording process. So this is kind of like tying a lot of that into. It's like a catch up of like the hiatus till now, basically.
And where is this available?
Well, we're doing a premiere in downtown Ithaca next Saturday, the 22nd of April.
Okay.
And then it'll be available somewhere after that. We'll get it up.
Fantastic. So any new studio? I know you said you had a bunch of extra songs lying around maybe from Bonfire. Is there another album on the horizon?
We've been slowly working on stuff. Yeah. I don't know. We don't have a definite timeline at the moment, but there's new songs kicking around. So trying to keep this
That's
train
like
rolling.
5 deadlines away, Kevin.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to say it's fantastic. I love that you guys, I found it strange, you did 07 to 17, you did your 10 years, and then I guess you walked away and were like, hey, maybe that was what I like doing. We've heard from a lot of bands like Humphreys and other people that having the quarantine renewed their love of being in a band that played live but they also had the chance to embrace the studio, which I feel like you guys really did with Bonfire.
Yeah.
No, I think a lot of what we were seeing, our peers going through during the pandemic, it was really interesting. We were already going through that because we stopped in 2017. So all the really deep self-doubt and questioning and what all this stuff that everybody was going through, we were like, hey, welcome aboard. Yeah, it sucks, doesn't it? Yeah, first time sucks, doesn't it? Huh? Yeah, but in a good way though, just sort of we totally understand that sense of like a loss of purpose and a loss of identity.
And I guess a loss of, for jam bands. I know we talked earlier about being labeled a jam band, but the way to make money with jam bands is playing live. It isn't like you're doing sync licensing
with any band.
There's any studio. There's no commercial potential with the albums you're releasing, really.
Right.
So that's got to be tough.
It is, and it's like Evan said, like that's kind of the jam band model, like historically, is kind of what everybody has to do now just to stay afloat.
Yeah, I know that like what they call like fifth wave emo, that's what those bands all do. But when you have quote unquote indie bands, a lot of time they will have some label support of some kind,
Sure. But it's like, does that put bodies in the room? Sometimes no. I've worked with artists like in the time off where it was like, oh, these guys were on an Apple commercial, or these guys they're on Windish or like whatever agency, and they still aren't filling the rooms the way like somebody like Pigeons Playing Ping Pong will. They're not. Yeah. So I think the value of having like any sort of label support is like not the jig is up, because I think it still is a good look, but people have realized that the power is in tickets. And if you have a following and people are going to your shows routinely, you're doing it.
Right, community. We always talk about jam bands have the community.
Most you guys have
Call Your Fans
I think
anything?
We need a better.
But most bands have a nickname.
I've thought about that.
For their
I was like,
fans,
I think we need something
some kind.
A little better. But Cataholics, Anonymous,
like alcoholics.
We definitely have a lot of that though, and since being back, it's been fun to see people coming to multiple shows and just sort of gaining that sense of community back, and watching it grow a little bit too, of new folks coming in and being like, oh, I'm coming to the next one. So yeah, it is all about that. Yeah.
That's what you want. Too bad we don't have tapes anymore. I mean, Fish, Widespread, all those bands, God Street Wine, all of them, tapes made them what they were. And
that's how we came up, was like coming across Fish tape bootlegs and like just realizing like, oh, there's an entire other side of what they release officially that you can just actively get if you know the right people.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
It's all about getting that first guy. Getting those first couple tapes, you're like, oh, I got this.
Yep.
So that was fantastic. We are going to get the whole Jimkata interview up at some point. I'll tell you a little bit about that in a minute. But before we get into that, we're going to revive a segment that we had started over a year ago. We did a few times, and with life, as always, makes things difficult sometimes. But this is called The Doctor is In. So what's the premise here, Amanda? And what was the question?
Yeah, well, Kevin, I'm a person who likes to chat with people, and also know after all these years in the scene that certain times situations pop up in terms of friendships, relationships. Now, I am not by far an expert on any of this, but I think it's great for people to maybe have an outlet to safely share maybe some of the concerns or challenges that they're dealing with related to music and tour life in some way. And so I do have one to share today. I'm going to read you the question and then my response to it. So here's a question. Hey, PhDJ, I need some advice. I'm in my late 40s, married for almost 15 years to a great guy, happy in my relationship. In the last year and a half, I lost my mom, decided to take a major break from working outside the house, and also found a band that I really love. I have been traveling to see this band as much as possible. Sometimes my husband joins me, but he can't always do that because of his work schedule. We've always been supportive of each other, and my husband is still supportive, but recently I told him about a few short tour runs I want to do before the end of this year. My husband didn't take it as well as I hoped he would, and I think he feels like maybe I'm spending too much time with the band and my new community of friends. What should I do? Signed, Ready to Tour More. So that's a tough one, Kevin. Like you're feeling fulfilled personally, but that's not always going to be how your partner feels about it. So here's what I said. I said, hey, Ready to Tour More. I can understand why this would be a challenging situation. For live music fans, the call to be at the next show, the next tour, can be pretty powerful. It seems like you found something really important to you, and that's special. Have you tried talking to your partner about their feelings? Maybe conversation, a little compromise will be what you need. Could you do some of those upcoming shows, but maybe not all? Or plan schedules together so there aren't any surprises? A couple I know who have been together for decades has said they've never asked each other for permission to do things. Instead, they'll tell each other what they would like to do with the trust that the other person will say something if it's an issue for any reason. If nothing's said, no concerns are brought up, then we all assume it's okay. So maybe you could set up a new way of sharing and communicating with each other. Wishing you all the best. So there we go, Kev. I mean, I'm sure that is a relatively common scenario for a lot of us who really, really feel that yearning to be at a show.
I always come back to, can one other person really fulfill everything you need in your life? And you're spot on with the talking about it. I think
Mhm.
most relationships fail because people don't want to have the difficult conversation. On the other hand, if the partner's like, screw that, you can't do it anymore, then maybe you need to reevaluate what you really want, where your value lies.
That's right. So, I'll do a little more, sharing about this segment out there. It's totally anonymous. You do not need to tell me who you are, but I think these situations are somewhat universal to a degree, and talking about it is good, like you said, Kevin. So, thank you for letting me share that one today.
There you go. So be sure to, tune in to the recaps. Stuff like that is going to be popping up. Tune in every day for the interview shorts with your favorite jam band musicians. And make sure that you check out our YouTube channel because we've been releasing the full interviews. As I mentioned, Jimkata will come out eventually. We had Alan Evans, Air Show Kendall Street Company up now, and Neil Evans from Dopapod is going to be popping up.
We love hearing from our listeners, so feel free to share your thoughts on either today's episode or please suggest topics for things we can discuss in the future. Make sure you connect with us on social media at All That Jam Pod or our website, allthatjampod.com. And Kevin, I would love to know who people would like for us to talk to. And so that in itself would be really great because then we can have at it and get them on the show. So would love to hear from you.
Right. Definitely reach out to us. Let us know. And if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And with that, until next time, remember, stay beautiful, but don't stay underground too long. I'll see you soon, Amanda.
All right, Kevin, thanks.